Eat, sleep, bet, repeat. That's how we get down on the opening line at EliteSportsBetting.com. I'll be your host, Benny Ricciardi, and it's a little bit of a rough day here in the sporting world. There's obviously no NBA games going on with the All-Star game being last night. I don't know, did you watch it, Frank? I thought it was a pretty entertaining All-Star game overall.
Off and on, I watched it. I was celebrating my golf win a little bit there, and
Nice.
watching the NBA game and watching some random stuff with the wife. But I've never been one to get too excited about All-Star games. But I will say the NBA All-Star weekend is easily the best All-Star situation out there by far. Definitely the most watchable and the most enjoyable. And we actually got to see some guys get after it last night, and I got to see what these guys could actually play defense when they want to, and like how impressive it is to watch.
It's pretty insane to say that there was a lot of defense being played in a game that I think had 300 total points, right? Like it was 157, 155.
For one quarter there was.
Yeah. But no, yeah, you're right. In the fourth quarter, I do like that little change that they made there, where it basically it became like schoolyard basketball, right? Like first team to 21 wins, and win by 2 and all that stuff. So it was a nice change that they made there. It got everybody to to kind of play hard, and like you said, we actually saw some defense in an All-Star game, which is not something we normally see. So a little bit different. I thought the dunk contest was pretty entertaining. I know a lot of people are upset that Aaron Gordon didn't win. I mean, it is what it is. Like, the way I look at it is, we're talking about it, right? So that means that it was entertaining there.
Yeah,
There's been a lot of dunk contests where nobody really gave a crap, and it was what it was, and it was like, oh yeah, great, Nate Robinson won. He's missed 14 and a half dunks before he finally made one, but the way the rules were, he wound up winning. I mean, listen, nothing against Derrick Jones Jr. He's had some amazing dunks this year when he's gotten out there on the floor, and this is a guy who I think is actually a little bit of an underrated player. I mean, he's filled in with Jimmy Butler and a couple of those guys sitting out. He's looked pretty good there. So nice to see him get some hardware. Is there controversy? Yeah. Should Aaron Gordon have at least one, maybe 2 dunk contests? Probably. But you know what? In the overall scheme of things, I mean, YouTube videos is what it's all about. And Aaron Gordon's getting a lot more hits on his dunks than anybody else.
So. I mean, a lot of people over time forget who won the dunk contest in certain situations, right? Like we just kind of remember the Vince Carter dunks and the, all the MJ dunks and all that. It's just most of the time you end up forgetting who won and who lost. You know what I mean? It's just the way to solve it really is just let the fans vote. Even if it was like only people in the arena get the vote, then fine. Like, give the players on the side buzzers, give the fans buzzers, because I'm sure it's different watching it in person, right? Like maybe in person it was like the sheer authority Derrick Jones was throwing the ball through the rim was unbelievable. Like the fact that he was doing all he was doing and finding the speed to throw some of those dunks down, pretty impressive, pretty impressive. So I was fine with them making it even a tie, you know what I mean? But unfortunately, it seems like Aaron Gordon's not going to come back, which kind of just seems like sore loser-ish stuff to me. But, whatever. The way to solve it is fan vote, I think, because then you can blame anybody else.
Especially in this day and age, because, I mean, how hard is it to have – I mean, everybody's got the NBA – I know I do. Everyone's got the NBA.com app on their phone anyway. You just put a little vote up thing there, or you put it up on Twitter. You get more fan engagement. Like, to me, it just makes so much sense to do it that way. Then, you don't have situations like this where everybody's complaining, oh, he should have won or he should have lost or whatever. But you know what? Not taking anything away from Derrick Jones. Like I said, he had some amazing dunks. He's had some amazing in-game dunks this year too.
Yeah,
he's a hell of a dunker as well. Aaron Gordon, though, I feel bad for him. He put on a show. That's all that it's really about. So anyway, though, we're going to talk a little college basketball here today. There really isn't a lot for us to get into. There's only about 12 games, I think, overall. But I know that you did have a couple plays on 2 or 3 of them. So let's talk about that. And the first one I wanted to talk about was the Kansas game. And the reason for that is you said it was one of the biggest edges you thought you had throughout the entire season so far. So Kansas is taking on Iowa State. Kansas is home. Kansas is favored by about 16 right now from what I'm seeing. The over-under started at 141. It's up to about 143.5. So what was so big about this Kansas-Iowa State game that you love?
So, yeah, it started at 141, and then it went up to 147 or something like that early this morning. And it got down to 145, and I actually played the under at 145.
Okay.
It was 144 and a half at some spots. On DraftKings, I was able to grab 145. I have this game at like 140. Like this game should be lined at like 140, I think, and there's still time for it to get there. So if the open would have stayed where it was, I wouldn't have played it. But it seemed like either some dumb money or some fake money came in on this game. Now I will say it's hard to gauge how these games where we expect Kansas to be up 20 points. How does that play out, right? But I would almost certainly say it's definitely a lean towards the under in these situations, because Kansas will get up in the last 3 minutes of their game will just be either the reserves or they're just going to run the shot clock all the way out, right, and then shoot something up, assuming they're going to have a good lead here. I do have Kansas as the best team in the country. Now that's open for interpretation because this changes like every day, right? Like this, I haven't seen a board this stacked.
Yeah, college basketball is really wide open this year for some reason.
In a long time. I mean, Michigan State isn't even ranked, and I still have them third. Yeah. They're not even ranked with their losses, but they're getting so much respect because of just the sheer talent on their team, right? The sheer talent on this team. You know, Duke's still fourth. I got West Virginia sixth. So there's a lot of just, you know, Michigan State could be third today. By the end of the week, they could be 15th, could be 20th. It just depending on how they play. There's just so much. It's all stacked together. That being said, the Kansas under is almost surely a product of, one, their tempo and their defense. So I have Kansas as the most efficient defense in the country and the 259th pace. So that's 259 out of 353. So in the bottom third of pace. And Iowa State, obviously not that great of a team. I had them like somewhere in 60th in the country, 64th right now I have them ranked. Again, that could change quite a bit. So like almost like a bubble team, you know, probably just going to maybe just miss the tournament. That being said, they're not very good defensively. If anything, they're okay offensively, but their pace is 210th in the country. So we're seeing this game around in the 140s, mid 140s. It's a little bit crazy to me, considering, you know, one, Kansas's defense, and two, the pace of these teams is just so slow for both of them.
So you said you have this game lined around 140 and a half, something like that?
The number should be like 140, 139, 140, yeah.
All right, so what would you be willing – because obviously, like you said, it opened at 141, jumped to 147, came back down around 144, 145. So depending on when people are listening to this, and, you know, I'm assuming this number may still keep moving throughout the day when we see that much fluctuation in it, where would you be willing to play it to? And, you know, where would you say, all right, we have to start backing off on it? Where's that number for you?
Yeah, it's so as we speak, again, these numbers change fast. Like you said, especially college basketball totals takes a few $1,000 and they'll start to move. So 143 and a half, I'm seeing now. You can play that. I would play it all the way down, maybe 141, something like that. So it's a like I said, pretty big edge here. In for anyone that's been following in the bet package, you'll notice that I've just had less and less plays as the year's going on. So the market is just becoming more and more and more efficient. And that's as expected as the year goes on. You know, my model gets tighter, the markets get tighter, everyone gets a little bit smarter as the year goes on. So I was actually surprised to see an edge like this pop up, you know, 5, 6, 7 points. Just that's crazy. Crazy difference there.
Yeah, so this is good. I mean, we got some plays that we can look at here today because, like I said, we have no NBA. We probably won't have NBA. I think, if I'm not mistaken, Thursday is, I think, the day that everybody comes back for NBA. So, you know, we won't have any other plays there. There will be some NHL stuff up in the betting package. I know you guys are going to be doing a golf video tomorrow as well. But for those of you who are jonesing for a little bit of action, college basketball and NHL is kind of all we have at the moment here to look at. So that's why we decided to talk a little bit of college basketball today. Now, there was one other play in the package today that I know you said you had something on. I think it was the Holy Cross Bucknell game. 147 total here. Bucknell opened as a 5-point favorite. They're up to a 7-point favorite right now. The total's kind of held 146 and a half is what I'm seeing. So not a lot of movement on that side of it. But what did you notice about this game that that kind of stood out to you? Yeah,
so small edge here on the under as well. 143.7 is my number. So not a huge difference. I am seeing some 146 and a half pop up as we speak. But 147 still out there in some spots. I would play 146 and a half would be my worst number. So unfortunately, only 15 games a day. Those are the two plays. So for Bucknell and Holy Cross, let me just scroll through them real quick. Bucknell 235th ranked, extremely inefficient on offense. Not very efficient on defense either, but probably a little bit better than their offense. Only 98 points per 100 possessions here. Relatively slow paced, considering Holy Cross is a little bit of a faster paced team. They're like 71.6 possessions per game. So a little bit better pace, but one of the worst offensive teams in the country, Holy Cross. They are ranked 334th and out of 353 for a reason. So this one is probably less to do about pace and more to do about just the offensive efficiency of these teams is just horrendous, right? So it's not a huge edge, but I think there's certainly room there for the under as we speak. Like I said, down to 146.5 is what I would play the under at.
All right, fair enough. Let me ask you some questions. I'm more of an NBA guy, so I know more of the NBA numbers here than the college basketball numbers. You know, sure. You said they have about 70 possessions a game. What's like around average for a college team?
Average tempo right now for my model is 68.6 possessions. That's each team, obviously.
Right.
So yeah, average pace 68.6, and then average efficiency across offense and defense is about 102 points per 100 possessions.
Okay, fair enough. So for those of you who are trying to figure out and wondering how Frank and Paulie and these guys get a lot of these numbers, that's basically what they do with their model. So like you're saying, 102 points per 100 possessions. You try to figure out the speed of the game and how many possessions based on what.
And just for reference, with like say Kansas, who is the best defensive team in the country, in my model is 86.7 points per 100. So pretty freaking low, right? And Iowa State's gonna have a hard time scoring, I would think.
Yeah. And that's basically the idea for those of you who don't understand how the whole modeling and everything works is, you take what an offense normally does, you factor in the kind of defense that they're going up against, you factor in the pace to get the number of possessions, and it's a nice little neat equation, and it kind of spits all this stuff out, and that's how these numbers come. So when we see a number that is about the same as what Vegas is offering, like Frank is saying, later in the season things start getting a little tighter, the numbers start getting a little better because you have more data in there. So when you see something that's off by a couple points, like some of these are, that's why it's such a big deal, and that's the edge that you get. Now, it doesn't mean it's a lock by any stretch of the imagination, but if you keep betting all the spots where you're getting these little edges over the course of the season or over the course of time, you're going to win more often than you lose, and that's how you grind out a little bit of profit. So
right, and you're talking about my college basketball model. So far this year, I've gotten 3/4 of the game. I've gotten closing line value. Like a reasonable and edge closing line value there in 74% of the game, so almost 3/4 of the game. And you're talking about winning at just under 56%. So you're still just hardly flipping coins, right? I've had some like 2-12 runs, and I've had some 15-1 runs. It's just eventually it evens out if you're getting a good number that you'll make money at the end of the year.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about closing line value. Like I said, we don't have a lot to talk about here today because there aren't a lot of games. So we'll do a little bit of teaching here. So what Frank means when he says closing line value, we talk about all the time. Like I asked him earlier today, what number would you play this up to? Where do you want to get it? And the idea is that, the numbers that are out there and the juice that you're paying on those certain numbers, as the numbers go up or down, the juice that you would be paying to get that number at the time the game starts is going to go up or down as well. So if you're betting something, the standard bet is usually a dime, so like minus 110. So if you can get some of these numbers where, let's say it's a lot easier to talk about with money lines where, let's say the money line was minus 150, and that's where you bet it, and then it goes down or it goes up to a different number before the game actually tips off. Like Frank is saying, what he's trying to do is he's trying to get the best number he can get. So if he gets in at 150, whatever he has to lay to get it, if that number moves in his direction 20 or 30 cents, then you're getting what's called closing line value. So you're getting 20, 30 cents of closing line value, where what you paid for it versus what it ultimately went off at tip-off, that's really what you want to do. And the more you can keep yourself in the positive with that, the more often you're going to wind up in the green at the end of the day. So he may have a little bit of a better way to explain it than I just did, but
yeah, just it's a
pretty
good
much.
way to think. The stock market's a good way to think about it, right? So if you buy a stock at $1.10 and it goes to $1.50 at the end of the day, well, you made money, right? That's what you're looking at, and that 40 cents that you made. Now on sports betting, you either win or you lose, right? So, but over the long term, you'll make that 40 cents, for every however many dollars you play, right? So that's the idea of it. That's probably the easier way to look at it. Now with basketball, there are some formulas and some calculators and things where if you bet, like we bet under 145 and it's 143 and a half, you can calculate that same, 40 cents, that same percentage of whatever it might be, relatively easy, relatively quickly if you have the right tools. And then, over the long term, if we make that bet and we consistently getting, 40, 50 cents, whatever it might be, you're going to keep like you said, you'll have some 2 and 12 and some 12s and 2s, but eventually over time, you're going to win 56%, right? You're going to win something like that, 55, 56%. And that translates to, we've had, let me see, 315 plays this year. And that translates to 22 units, which, you're not going to run around saying like, oh, I won, 600 units. Yay. Because, those are all 1-unit plays for me. Keep it relatively simple for everyone. Get in pregame and just bet your standard bets, and these are your edges, right? So, yeah, it's just a simple approach to sports betting. And, I would recommend, even if you're just making numbers in your head, you don't need necessarily a model, look at the Kansas Iowa State game and say, okay, this is what I think the spread should be. This is what I think the total should be, and calculate how often you're getting closing line value on your numbers. And obviously the earlier you get in, the less efficient the market is because it has less money in it.
Yeah, and here's another thing that people don't understand. Like, let's say $100 is your unit size, for example. So Frank said he has 315 plays in there. That means that there's 31. If you're betting $100 a game, that's $31,500 that you bet. But it's not like you're betting that $30,000 all in one day, right? Like there may be 4 or 5 plays in a day, so you may be betting $400 or $500 in a day. And being up 22 units, again, if your unit size is $100 and you're up 22 units, that means you made $2,200 on a year on $31,500 in bets. So, when you see something like that, you're really looking at like probably around a 7-8% profit, somewhere around there off the top of my head, just doing the numbers.
6.75% ROI this year. Okay. So for every $100 you bet, you're getting about $7 back. Yeah. So you can get but if you're betting $100, right, that's going to add up and you're going to make money over time. So don't get frustrated with the short-term losses. Look at the long-term approach and say, okay, I know over time that if I'm beating the market X% of the time, then I'm going to make this much ROI. And that's, to be honest, this season is like a pretty standard, what I would expect, pretty average season over the last couple of years doing this. Sometimes you pop off and you hit 11%. Sometimes you sit down, you get 4 or 5% at the end of the year. Around 6 to 8% is about what I would expect for just a normal season.
And for those, for a lot of people now who are just starting to get into sports betting, this is how you're able to keep yourself in the game for the long term and just keep on grinding out a little bit of profits. There's a lot of people that'll come in there and they'll show you a flashy screenshot of, hey, I won 7 bets in a row today. But, anybody who's been doing this for long enough knows that you're going to have, like Frank said, you're going to have your 12 and 2 days and you're going to have your 2 and 12 days. The process is the same. The way you're looking at the numbers, the way you're betting the numbers. If you're doing it the intelligent way, you're trying to grind out a little bit of a profit long term. And that's the hardest thing, in my opinion, for the new gambler to understand. The new gambler is always trying to turn $100 into $1 million. And I'm going to be honest with you, that happens once every 5 years for some guy who gets lucky and hits like a 12-team parlay. Yeah. You got to learn how to win a little bit at a time and protect your money, because otherwise you keep trying to double it. You keep trying to go all in. You keep thinking that, you have some kind of lock. And I'll tell you, I've lost a lot of games that I thought were locks. And if I had gone all in with my bankroll, I wouldn't have been able to bet the next day and make up for it. So slow and steady really does win the race. You want to be the tortoise, not the hare. Do the smart thing, make the smart bets, and, you got a chance to move forward from there. So like I said, we don't have a lot of games. We don't have a lot to talk about. So I figured we'd do a little bit of teaching, a little bit of that stuff today. Anything else you want to add here before we sign off?
No, that's it. Just the long grind throughout the season. March is coming up, so that's an exciting time. I will have some futures in that. I'm sure we'll do at least one show, probably a couple shows between here and Lunch Money, you know, to talk about the tournament and all that, which is where I'll typically go in and get my futures bets in, where I can kind of actually simulate out the tournament and all that good stuff. So,
Yep.
yeah, that's about it for today.
All right, yeah, and again, if you want to get some more of that information, or even some of the bets that our NHL guys are putting in for the next couple of days, or if there's MMA this weekend, and these guys will have the the Up and Down Golf Show. Oh, shout out to you guys as well. I got them in at 30-1, but another 30-1. I think some people got them at 35-1. Another 30-1 winner on the Up and Down Golf Show. So if you guys aren't signed up and watching that, you're just wasting money at this point.
Three out of 4 weeks, one of us picked a winner, and last week Paulie had like the guy that finished 3rd and 4th, so he was in it last week as well. So it's been a good month for golf for us.
Yeah, so like I said, make sure you guys get over to www.elitesportsbetting.com. You can get all those plays, all that information over there. You get everything that's popping out of the models from Frank. You get everything from Paulie, who will probably be with us again on Wednesday or whenever we get some NBA basketball back to talk about. And, that pretty much sums it up. So for a slow Monday in the sporting world, he's Frank, I'm Benny, signing off for another episode of The Opening Line.